for today.
That's why you should. You get the nice view of the lava path, and that's really the one. Probably actually, my guess, the snow is worse at the bottom of the path than at the top. But that south side of Bend.
Thank you for those encouraging words. Okay. All right. Is it like, it must be 1 o'clock somewhere. Thank you, Angie. Okay. Let's call our meeting to order. And because we're normally upstairs, we are downstairs today just so we have no technical issues. It is our meeting, but Deschutes County Board of County Commissioners, February 26, 2024. Because we are downstairs, let's do the flag salute, even though it's not on the agenda.
Here you go.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. We didn't have any, do we have a blue sheet? Yes. Okay, great. Okay, all right. We do have someone that wants to make public comment, so they will have, if you mind coming over there, that would be great. Thank you so much, Doreen.
Commissioners. Afternoon.
Yeah.
I've been very vocal in the abuse coming from Bend Municipal Airport. While I watch my children's bodies rack with sobs after burying our dog of 20 years. The pilots over 200 times in an hour were diving us. And I could not be more pissed that you guys have done nothing and it's gotten to this point. Your job is to protect citizens of this county and this community, not the airport. They have protection from FAA. They have protection from their $250,000 a student. They have protection from the college's money. You need to be protecting the citizens of our county. In a month, my neighbor has died of cancer. My dog has died of cancer. I've been telling you this shit's coming. You can't have the highest airborne lead pollution in the state and not have death, not have illness, not have mental illness. It has to stop. It has to stop. Who's defending the citizens of your county against the airport abuse? Enough people come in here and read poetry, so I thought I'd share a little with you. Called it Flying Through the Fall of Rome. I live in the void of government taking, who sacrifice for progress, cruelly forsaking. Having dreams of ducks drowning and fireballs flaming, more symptoms of corruption and tyrants proclaiming, this is good for communities, stop your complaining. They target and harm and abuse with impunity while capturing agents who grant them immunity. As our birds and the neighbors die for pilot protections, greed fuels to threats, deaths, and gaslighting projections. Pollution and culling, death by deafening toxin. It's a symbol of status for the wealthy not boxed in to sacrifice zones or poverty stricken, made worse evermore while increasing the sickened. Dare to speak up and you'll learn some linguistics like doxing and navaids and waypoint logistics. Approved by state reps and local politics too. Remember, airports get funded by me and by you. Trending thought projects of empires like Rome, yet pilots blast through, killing hope, planet, and home. If tyranny continues costing health and cognition, I'll step to your corruption and give due recognition for the torture and terror and psychopath making through poisoning, theft, and ecological raping. I'll work a little each day on our favorite platform, sharing the reality of airport sadistic new norms. Post on lead noise and ethers swept under the rugs with the bodies of cold victims and pilots on drugs. Thank you.
Thank you, Doreen. Brenda, we have her address on file, do we not? Okay, all righty, thank you. Angie, are there any raised hands on Zoom? Okay, all right. Okay. Jeff? Jeff, can you unmute yourself?
Yeah, can you hear me?
We can now, thank you.
Okay. Hi, I'm Jeff Hubley, PO Box 141, Terrebonne. Just want to thank the Board of Commissioners for allowing me to speak. I will not be able to attend the Wednesday meeting where you will have a work session addressing RVs as rental dwellings. So I just want to voice my support of it now and encourage you guys to take up the proposal. My wife and I built our own tiny house on wheels. We put tens of thousands of dollars and countless hours into it. Building a house on wheels allowed us to be homeowners, even though we don't have high-paying jobs. And now we want to see this measure pass so that we could legally live in our tiny house on rural land in the county, excuse me. According to Beacon Report, the median home price in Bend is $700,000. That's far out of reach for me and many others. Affordable housing in Bend is slipping out of reach for many people, with a 16% jump in rent prices from 2019 to today. So there's no perfect solution for the housing crisis in the county, but I think that this proposal is an opportunity that gives more options for low-cost housing to a lower wage demographic. I just want to give you a snapshot of the demographic that would be affected by this. I've gotten to know quite a few people who are living in converted vehicles, RVs, and tiny houses within the county. They're retail workers, nursing home assistants, educators, food service industry workers, trades workers, nonprofit workers, veterinarian technicians, nannies, and retired. When the Planning Commission voted 4-3 against recommending this proposal, they cited a potential disruption of wildlife and increased traffic on rural roads. I understand these concerns, but I think the benefits of passing this outweighs the downsides. Life in tiny houses and RVs on private properties is already happening throughout the county. I think that passing this proposal would increase safety for all the parties involved, and it would provide residents with security that they could continue to live where they are without fear of being evicted. Simply, we just want to live legally in the homes that we own in an area that we love. And if a landowner is willing to rent out a space on their property for us to live, then I support that right. Yeah, and I would just encourage you guys to take up the proposal at your next meeting on Wednesday and continue to look into it. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Jeff. That was really a good idea for you to testify today. So anyway, thank you. I appreciate hearing from you.
Thank you, Jeff. Could I also just say, Jeff, I really appreciate everything you said, and you know, I'm pretty much aligned. One thing that you may want to look into is the state legislation that authorized RVs as leased dwellings in the rural county. Set some parameters around what an authorized vehicle and unauthorized RV might be. And I believe I may be mixing some things up. I believe we talked about it. Are the RVs that will be authorized under that legislation needing to be registered with the DMV? Having a certain registration with the DMV, and many tiny houses may or may not qualify under that. So I just encourage you to look into it, because I'm hoping that we create some kind of a program, but I would hate for you not to be. I would hate for you to think that you're eligible and for you to end up not being eligible, even if we do pass a program.
So thank you. Angie, are there any other raised hands? Okay, all righty. So let's go then to our agenda. Item number 1 is actually postponed to a later date. We will not be discussing that today. So then we go to item number 2, who's now sitting at the table. So thank you.
Chair Dare, if we could just make sure that we're clear that we're convening as the governing body for the Sun River
Oh,
Services District. I know
yes.
it's not noted on our.
It's
agenda.
not noticed, but we are convening as the, Sun River Service District at this time. Thank you so much, Sun River, for being here.
Well, thank you for your time today. My name is Jim Pfister. I'm the current board chair for the managing board for the Sun River Service District, and we thank the governing body for giving us the time. We have Vice Chair Shoemaker, as well as many of our dedicated staff here today. I should make you guys present. Okay, they said no. So we're going to go over today. We have some proposed changes for the management agreement. I've reviewed these with county council I think we spent a couple hours on this. And so we have a couple of changes. And so I have a brief presentation for you, and I'm happy to take any questions as we go. So And then just from an agenda perspective, we'll have a discussion of the proposed changes and reasoning, and then we don't get much of an opportunity to be in front of you. So we'll just give you a quick update on some of the other items that are going around our building update, because I know that you've always been very interested in that, as well as thoughts on a potential district name change. So we'll cover all of that. So without further ado, so while we're here, we have the opportunity to change the management agreement, and we've done it, I think 5 or 6 times over the history of the service district itself. Recently, we haven't really touched other than a minor change 2 years ago, we really haven't touched it in about 5 or 6 years. And recently, a couple of things have changed to give us some consideration to do a couple of proposed changes. So first of all, we did have our SSD-driven county discussion and ballot process for doing the fundraising on our building. Again, thank you to the county for working with us, not only to help us support the building financially, but also personally, several of you help advocating for it as well. We had a very successful county ballot. We are continuing on delivering on that building. And again, I'll give you a quick update there in a bit. But we also, in the last year, we had a long-time financial agreement with the Sun River Owners Association on finance and HR. And at their behest, we decided to cancel that, or they canceled it on us in the last year. That gave us some ideas of what it actually took to stand on our own a little bit. We've been moving a little farther away from the Owners Association over time, and looking and seeing some of the advice that we were given by County Council, by the Service District Association of Oregon. We really see a need to become more of an independent government agency. So the proposed changes that we're offering are in that light. So any questions before I move on? All right. So there's basically 4 changes. So the first is, and I'll ask a question here after I go through this. Currently, there are 2 positions, position 1 and position 2, that in the current management agreement are allocated directly to board members of the Sun River Owners Association. The language that we have would basically put position 1, would maintain position 1 as SROA, and would move position 2 to an at-large position. The language would allow the Sun River Owners Association board to appoint any SROA member to the position rather than just a board member. And you can see the changes there, and then you also have the marked up agreement in your packet as well. We will have a new approval process that I'll talk about in a second, but that process would hold to position 1. They would basically submit the name to the nominating committee to pass through. And then the other change that we made in that is that Sun River would only hold a regular board position. In the last significant management agreement change, we actually removed SROA's ability to hold the board president or board chair position. They were still eligible for vice chair and treasurer. The recommendation here is that any SROA board member would only be able to hold a regular position, not a officer position. And that's really just to make sure that we're not creating any entanglements. Now, we're coming in with the proposal to say position 1 would maintain an SROA, be an SROA board member. There's a significant minority report within the district. I think the way I described this when I was reviewing it with the SROA board is if I did a straw poll of board members, staff, key advisors, including some in the county, we get as many zeros as ones in terms of how many positions SROA should hold by default. So I kind of wanted to bring this in a different way, and I'll actually turn to Council Doyle as well. We're proposing right now to keep position 1 as an SROA space, and probably in the next management agreement, we would probably remove that, and we would make that an at-large position as well. So the question that we would bring to the governing board is, should we rip the Band-Aid off now? And should we just basically say position 1 and position 2 are both at large, And then SROA still does have an opportunity to submit a name as a potential candidate. It's just they don't have a position that is allocated to them. So that's one I'll pass to you for an opinion, or Dave, I don't know if you want to say anything about that.
Oh, he does. Thank you, Dave.
Dave Doyle, County Attorney. Yeah, the managing agreement has always included SROA. It's more of an accommodation. There's no legal mandate that they be required. I think it just reflects the historic practice when the district was stood up 23, whatever years ago. SROA was out there on the ground and was able to provide that type of oversight and assistance that kind of a new struggling government needed. And as time's gone on, there's less and less need for that. And so there is no mandate that they be included in the agreement. It's a management agreement between you, the governing body, and your managing board. And SROA just kind of comes along as a courtesy, again, recognizing, I think, the historical role that it played. My understanding is the SROA folks aren't all that upset or troubled by being kind of pushed out a little bit and not being quite as entangled in the service district organization. As Jim indicated, they no longer do the HR finance type stuff. So a lot of that entanglement has been kind of broken, and which is, I think, natural for just the evolution of the district. Think of it as I tell people all the time, it's similar to a city. You know, when new cities start up, they're really leaning on typically the county that they're in and some of the other districts for a lot of assistance, because rarely can they hit the ground running. And I think the same was true here historically.
So thought is, I mean, what would preclude somebody that's just really motivated to want to know what's going on to be on both of these boards? So you could end up with 2 or even 3 that are on both of these boards. I mean, there's nothing precluding that, correct?
There's language very specifically that says an SROA board member cannot hold any more than 3 of the 7 positions. That is in the language. So that does give SROA the opportunity to say, we would like a representative on that and run it through the.
But I'm referring to the individual, you know, so there's the entity of the SROA, but I mean, if I'm, you know, Sun River property owner and I like to go to meetings, you could go to both of these meetings, be on both of these boards. And I mean, yes, there's a push and a pull about some of the dynamics, obviously, but I'm just pointing out that, you know, go to a meeting, set the policy.
I wouldn't presume to know what the right formula is for the Sun River community at this point in time. I mean, the reason that it had to was, you know, as Dave mentioned, a product of history and kind of what the community was ready for. And the folks who live in Sun River know what you're ready for much better than I do.
Yeah, I might just mention that we did have a meeting we brought this before the SROA board. They're very well aware of which direction we're going. And as Jim said, the straw poll was, you know, many in the SSD thought that maybe we just not push out, but move on from having SROA members on there. But some of it, going to your observation, Commissioner Chang, is that it is kind of just developed that way in the sense of the bureaucratic nature of the beast. And so we've really tried to push ourselves towards a professional side of the house. And with the hiring of the new police chief and the fire chief and a new administrator, and it's kind of, if we really want to move to that professional side of agency, I think now is the time, because we're in the middle of a building. We've done all these other changes. It might be the best time to do all of it in the sense of, I think that we've developed a good program going forward with our new administrator, who has been intimately involved. And I know she probably calls Mr. Doyle's office regularly, I'm sure. And so we're really trying to push in that direction. And we found that with SROA members, there was a potential for conflict of interest rising more and more, and where they would actually some financial issues related to SROA voting as a SSD member that we have to pay them, not them individually, but SSD paying SROA. And so we're trying to get that little bit of distance, like, as they say, the Chinese wall between us, where we can talk, but we can't do business, with them on the board and make it difficult at times. And so that contributed greatly to it.
So we're happy to take guidance, or you can just say it's our call.
I would note as a process matter, today is not the time that the board would be approving this management
Right.
agreement. That would come back to you as an action item on a regular meeting, perhaps even consent, but it would come back to you. So you're not being asked to sign anything today or finally approve anything today. It's just to kind of vet these proposed changes with you.
Thank you,
Okay.
Mr. Doyle, for that clarification.
All right. We'll move to the next, and I'll work with, I'll take an action item out of this to work with the county council to make the official call on this, so that you can work your consent.
So yeah, this is us as in partnership, the managing board, the board of commissioners elected, these seats are all appointed, right? I mean, it's kind of a rolling appointment process underneath this situation. I'm not opposed to, not having a named Sun River Owners Association board member, but knowing we're not making a decision today, let SROA understand that and see if there's angst or discussion that follows.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
All right. 2 is actually a change also in the direction. The current agreement actually has SROA as the approving body for the managing board nominations to you, and you're the final approval in any case. The proposed management change would actually have the SSD managing board as the recommending body for that. And this one we want to be pretty firm on. There have been some entanglements in the past. And there have been some issues where the SSD has actually advocated, for certain experience, and then that hasn't been delivered in terms of the process that we're using. So this was actually suggested by county council to us, and the goal is basically to continue to use the existing nominating committee, which is an independent body in Sun River, if they would like to continue to be utilized. So we have that offer out. But we've basically put language in to say we can use them, or we could go build our own nominating committee. And so that's the language that you see that's in here. One of the reasons that we want to do this is that it would allow for a future change of potential district bounds. And we've had some conversations in public meeting before. I know Commissioner Chang asked in the December meeting if we had considered any territory expansion of any type. We still have not actively considered anything, but we would like to allow for a future expansion if that's the right thing to do for South County. And this is just a way to be able to get started on it. So the governing body, you yourselves represent the people, as always in any approval, and you still have the opportunity to hear any opposition to nominations. This just streamlines it and allows the SSD to be a little more active in finding its own nominees, finding the right experience, and proposing that to you. So that's the heart of this change. So any questions on this one?
Just thinking out loud here about future change of bounds. I mean, that's balance of local public safety opposed to sheriff's office, and then fire response opposed to the surrounding district also. So yeah, that's a bigger discussion, isn't it?
Yeah, hairball would be the term.
There you go.
So again, no proposals, no considerations or anything in that, but we wanted to be open for the opportunity should that come in. All right, I'll move on to change 3. This one, we really want to focus on. We want more stringent criteria for the SSD board participation. There's kind of a cursory background check that the current nominating committee does. And we've never had any issues, but we would also like to forestall any issues that would come in. So we will establish a background and a conflict process that we will encounter, and that would be done by a third party. Chief Lopez is runs a very good department, but I don't know that he wants to be vetting his own bosses. Okay.
Confirm that.
And although I would certainly trust him to do it. But then we also want to discuss more of a conflict of interest as well. And again, Vice Chair Shoemaker mentioned that, we've had some entanglements in the past. And we want to make sure that everybody acknowledges a conflict of interest. I think you've heard me say before in different contexts that usually the way to prevent a conflict of interest is to acknowledge that one might exist. And so we want to be a little more stringent in terms of how we vet the candidates, where those conflicts are, and how we could resolve those conflicts should they become members of the board. So in overall, we're just focused on more broadly acknowledging the transparency and conflicts of interest in any deliberations that we do. And so we're putting some language in and putting a check in to make sure that we do that. Questions or comments on that?
Are there any scenarios of conflict of interest that are kind of like the examples you think of? Because obviously, if you're running a business supplying something, there's a financial direct conflict of interest, but anything else? I mean, I'm just trying to understand the concept.
The two that present themselves on the current board. One would be that there's a member of the Sun River Service District Board who's actually also a member of the County Budget Committee, which approves the Sun River Service District Board. That conflict was acknowledged in both of the interview processes, and we have, I think, an appropriate resolution for that to go do that. But that is one that we wanted to make sure that was acknowledged. No comments.
Yep.
The second,
I just said, which position came first?
they actually came pretty simultaneously. I mean, in the interviews, since it's for the benefit of the audience, it's me. In the interviews, I acknowledged that I would probably be rejoining the SSD board, and so I actually got appointed. I think I forget which came first, but they were within a week of each other.
Well, but is that a conflict of interest? Personal benefit conflict is what I'm envisioning here. This is just the public's business. You're working at two different levels, but I don't know that I see it as a conflict per se.
So I'll give you two examples, and one will come up in the fourth change that we're proposing. One of the things that we're proposing would be that in addition to potentially an SROA board member, that a business could apply to be to put a representative on the board. In that case, if there was a discussion of, say, contract services between the police to go run to go do security for a business, that person would have to recuse themselves, or anything else like that. The other one that Vice Chair Shoemaker did mention just a little bit earlier is there are a variety of financial agreements that still exist between the service district and the owners association. There's a vehicle maintenance agreement. There's a rules enforcement where Sun River Police will actually enforce SROA rules. Those things do have monetary impacts. And again, I don't think that it's necessary that a joint SROA SSD board member would have to recuse themselves, but we do think it's appropriate that they acknowledge that there is a conflict of interest.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So and that's kind of the conclusion I was just coming to, just acknowledging it. These are my interests. These are my, financial or, whatever, just acknowledging it.
Yeah. I don't think any board members have plans to do upfit for police or fire vehicles or anything like that. So that's clear. I'm not that good of a mechanic. All right. So then the fourth change would be we would open board positions to more options. So currently, the definition of an approved board member is an owner of a Sun River home. We would actually like to expand that, and so we expand it in a couple of ways. So one, we would open it to a registered voter in the district. So a renter who lives long-term in Sun River votes in the Sun River district. We want to give them an opportunity for representation as well. So it's owner, not voter, via home ownership, and then voter, not owner via district elector. And then also we would open an opportunity for a business to propose representation. Now, the nomination process would then have to go vet whether this would be an appropriate thing. A scenario could be, I'm a significant business in the area and I would like an opportunity to have representation. We could vet that. If it was, I'm a business in the area and I'm mad because you did something and therefore I want representation, that would be a different consideration that the nomination process would have to do. But we would open it up and then let the nomination, and again, the approval process, then vet that. So that's the fourth change that we have that we've proposed. Any questions on that? All right. And again, you saw the language that came through, and you do have the proposed language that are in there. We will continue to collaborate with the owners association. I mean, we're homeowners. We live there. We have common things. And in many ways, we want to make sure we're doing the right thing. We want to monitor the total ratepayer burden the total burden on the taxpayer ratepayer. We want to make sure, as a former board member, Ron Schmidt is fond of saying, we don't want to rob Peter to pay Peter when it comes to money transfers. We want to make sure that we're combining our efforts to influence other entities, and we'll continue to do that. We want to make sure that we're attracting local talent to employment opportunities, as well as giving volunteer opportunities in Sun River. So we feel the need to continue to collaborate with SROA. So this is not a Taylor Swift breakup song moment here. We really are focused on ensuring that we're doing the right thing for the region. So then just a couple of things. So any questions on the management agreement before I give you a couple other quick updates, and then we'll be done. All right. So again, since we're in front of you, and since the county was so helpful in terms of helping us with our public safety building funding, just to give you a brief update, the building was dried in prior to any significant winter weather. We were a little concerned that it was running past Thanksgiving, but we had a fortuitous early winter. The building is dried in, and therefore we didn't see any schedule impacts that came on that, because one of our biggest concerns on cost is missing the schedule. So we remain on schedule for a very early, I believe it's January 5th, 25 completion, and we do have some options to continue to pull that in. One of the other things that we've talked with you about in the past is our philosophy is that one way to save costs is to make sure that we don't do any change orders. A change order was actually proposed to us in I believe it was the January meeting. And I remember having the conversation on, well, okay, how much extra is it going to cost if we have to do this change order? And it was, no, if we do this, we'll probably save about $50,000. So the board happily approved that one. So we remain on time. We remain on budget. We, again, want to be very responsible with the taxpayer dollars that are entrusted to us. So we wanted to make sure that you were aware of what was going on there. And you do still receive the monthly updates from us, and we're always happy to have you come down and take a tour of the building as is. It's looking pretty good now. And then just one other consideration, and this was proposed to us, and we are thinking that it might be a good time to take it seriously. We're considering a name change in the district from the Sun River Service District to the Sun River Public Safety District. It doesn't seem like a big change, and it's not really a big change, but Sun River Service District, we've had the occasional questions on, where can I pay my water bill? Well, that's the utility district down the road. So we were thinking Public Safety District might be a better name for us. We did look, and again, discussed with county counsel and assistant legal counsel on what would be required to do that. And that requires basically a county hearing or a hearing of the governing board, which would be yourselves, and then a governing board vote to go do that. So if you would be interested in that consideration, we would figure out a timeline and a discussion to do that.
So Jim, you're thinking about PSD and not SPSD?
It's right now it's Sun River Service District, so SSD. It would be Sun River Public Safety District, so yeah, SPSD.
Okay.
It kind of rolls off the tongue.
Oh, you do it so fast.
Would it be, I mean, not to add words, but I mean, would it make sense to consider Sun River Police and Fire Department?
We actually consider that, and if I go back one, you can kind of see some of the building signage that we're considering. In fact, the design Review Committee just approved this. The building itself will say Sun River Public Safety. And then if you see down on the little archway just over the entryway, it says Police and Fire. We would probably have similar signage that would go outside that would say Sun River Public Safety, Police and Fire. That's a little harder to roll off the tongue and make an acronym. So that's why we thought Public Safety District, but we'd be open to other suggestions. And again, that's why a hearing would need to be held.
The building looks gorgeous. You're doing a good job.
Yes, if you get the opportunity to come down, just if you happen to be down for South County breakfast or something in the near future, and you have
mean
some time,
tomorrow
you're welcome.
morning?
You're always welcome to come by and take a tour. The Kirby has plenty of hard hats to hand out, and you can see the progress on the building.
There's hard hats to borrow. Thank you.
All right.
Well, as part of the construction project, I can see there's kind of a window here to change, if there's a name change proposal to, kind of schedule it in before ribbon cutting on that building. So I see that concept here. And yeah, I don't know that I'd be opposed to that. So we can start that process
Right. I thank you for your time today and
Great.
look forward to visiting you in the future.
Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you so much. You weren't going to show the last slide with,
I threw up the question slide.
okay.
It was up.
Oh, I
yeah,
didn't see it. I
it
was,
up there
yeah.
for a moment.
I was going to think maybe you should identify the people in the picture.
I'm trying to remember who's.
Yeah, who is in the picture?
What is that?
Turning them.
It'd be hard to see.
They should have had credits
Oh,
underneath.
That is our bike patrol from last
Bike.
year.
Okay, wonderful.
So we maintain a seasonal bike patrol in the summer. It's part of our community policing effort as well as community service efforts. And those were our 6 bike patrol officers from last year. Some of whom we hope to get back as district employees in the future as well.
Mhm.
Great, thank you.
All right. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great to see everyone.
Okay, doke. So now we need to reconvene as Deschutes County.
She's got it.
I did write it down. Okay, we have our treasurer report. Is Mr. Kuhn in the room?
Yes, he is.
There he is. Thank you all. Drive safely.
Seat's still warm.
Welcome.
Good afternoon, commissioners. For the record, Bill Kuhn, Deschutes County Treasurer. Thanks for allowing me to present the January Treasurer's Report. As usual, I'll take just a couple minutes and talk about some economic updates and kind of what's happening out there. And I guess the place to start is let the blame game begin. Just last month, we were discussing that Congress had approved another short-term continuing resolution to provide interim funding for our federal government. And we are now facing another looming partial shutdown by this Friday's funding deadline. So we kind of kicked the can down the street last month, and here we are. As announced yesterday afternoon and again this morning, congressional leaders have failed to reach agreement on compromise spending bills. They have just a few days left this week. They've got to have that in place by Friday. And to basically clear another short-term stopgap action. This is the 4th such occurrence since September of 2023. 4 spending measures are due this Friday, and the remaining 8 must be approved by March 8th. So we're kind of right down to the wire again. Economic information, the Fed decided to leave rates unchanged for the 4th consecutive meeting in late January, with leadership conveying a message of patience to allow previous restrictive policy decisions to further soften economic activity. This message does not necessarily convert to immediate rate cuts, which I think the market is finally kind of realizing, but again, supporting that higher for longer rate scenario that I've been reporting on over the last few months. The next Fed meeting is scheduled for March 19th and 20th, and there really is no expectation that rates are going to move. Certainly not up, but likely we're not going to be looking at any rate cuts until probably early 3rd quarter is kind of what the latest prognosis is there. So With the announcement that year-over-year inflation remains elevated at 3.4% for the month of January, the Fed will be challenged in achieving further reductions to the target 2% terminal rate. As reported, consumer spending remains robust, with firmer labor market statistics, which bode well for a softer landing, but continue to highlight concerns with lingering inflationary pressures. With growth accelerating from earlier forecasts, the notion that the Fed will need to cut rates to stabilize economic activity does not appear to be justified at this time. The market is still estimating 50 basis points in rate reductions in the second half of 2024, and they're still targeting a year-end terminal rate at around 4.625%. So again, those are just forecasts. They're not absolutes, but likely not to see any rate cuts until sometime in third quarter. From a manufacturing perspective, the producer price index rose by 0.7% in January, which was higher than the 0.4% forecast. And also in January, the U.S. economy added a robust 353,000 jobs, which was considerably higher than the 289,000 forecast. And the unemployment rate is holding steady, and it's been at this rate for several months now at 3.7%, which is still considered full employment. Nationally, housing data showed mixed results. January existing home sales fell 4.7% below December's activity to a seasonal level of a little over 1 million units, which certainly was impacted by inclement weather conditions across the U.S. Building permits of 1.47 million were 1.5% below December starts, but up 8.6% from a year ago. So that's starting to show some encouraging signs there. The significant decline in the CPI over the past several months has had an impact on long-term rates, and the current 30-year mortgage rate is 6.625%, which was down from a high of 6.95% in December. At a regional level, provide some data on several markets within Deschutes County. The Bend single-family market had a median sales price of $700,000 in January, which was down from a record high in July of last year of $800,000. Median sales price is continuing to be impacted by, again, higher-end homes, $1 million plus homes. And of the 89 total sales in January, 13 of these were above $1 million. There is a 1.5 months supply of homes currently listed, with 45 days listing for sold properties. Bend area single family building permits dipped slightly from 31 permits in December to 25 in January. And again, part of that's seasonal. But again, we haven't seen that robust increase in building permits at the local level. Redmond statistics for the year show a similar trend. Current median sales price of $507,000, which is down slightly from $510,000 at year end. So basically flat since the end of the year.
Well, what were they last July? Do you have any idea? Because that's $100,000 difference.
For Redmond?
No, for Bend, you said it.
It was $100,000 difference.
Yeah,
From July
that's huge.
to the end of the year.
Now, my son is trying to tell me that there was a home in 2014 that was for $100,000 in Redmond that's now selling for $550,000. And Mom, why didn't you buy a bunch of homes? So I'm like, did it really go up that much from 14?
Yeah.
I mean, that's huge. And it's not even that big of a home.
Yeah. And I think, again, the prices that we've seen in Bend have pushed a lot of first-time home buyers into Redmond, LaPine, and outlying areas. So we've seen significant increases in those areas as well, just because of supply and demand and cost of land. So looking at, again, some other markets, Sisters, $686,000 was median sales price. Sun River, $980,000 was the median sales price. And LaPine was $452,000 in January. And as we've talked before, inventory supply issues continue to have a major impact on the availability of home sales, existing homes, and also costs for new construction continue to drive overall pricing. So any other questions on kind of the economy in general?
So how long are homes on the market in Lapine then? Do
I don't have.
I mean, because you said it was a month and a half for Bend.
Yeah, a month and a half, in Bend. Redmond is very similar,
Similar?
but they don't provide, sales data for Lapine in some of the outlying areas.
Okay, all
Yeah,
right, well,
my
just,
resources. So,
all right. Interesting statistic.
yeah, it is very interesting. So stay tuned. This will be an interesting week. So, be plugged into your congressional representatives, I would say. So, January treasurer's report, I'll provide some highlights on activity through the end of the month. The portfolio balance was 328 million at month end, which was a decrease of 6.7 million from December. But again, was overall showed the influx of tax receipts over the last several months. It was an increase of 10.5 million year over year. So, and again, remember that we did receive the influx of our bond issuance to help fund the courthouse, and those funds are now part of that overall investment portfolio. There was
But we just
minimal,
got them last week.
and I was going to comment on that.
And
Thank you, Chair.
Well, I mean, I'm going like, okay.
Minimal
2,000 a week.
investment activity for the month of January. However, we did receive the $15 million in funding from the DOJ last Thursday. And as of about an hour and a half ago, those funds are now fully invested in the market to match the expected payment stream from or required by the courthouse project. So again, we're match funding the funds that we had available with the need and kind of tying it into the projected pay app applications on that project. So anyway, those funds are all fully invested, and I think all of those rates were in excess of 5%. So getting a nice little return on those proceeds. Net investment earnings were 918,000 for the month, down slightly from last month's earnings, but 357,000 higher than a year ago. And that's reflected of the significantly higher rate environment and just some general growth in the portfolio. All portfolio category balances are well within policy guidelines. The LGIP rate at the end of January remained at 5%, but we were notified that the LGIP rate was changed to 5.2% effective February 1. So we did see a little bit of bump in our short-term rates. So, and with the roughly 40 million that we're keeping in short-term liquidity, we'll definitely see an impact there. With active reinvestment over the last several months, the portfolio has a weighted term to maturity of 1.05 years. And then, like I said, we're targeting maintaining roughly 40 million in short-term liquidity, which again is yielding the LGIP rate, which will be increased for the month of February.
And First Interstate account is matching.
That matches
On those
so it's
dates.
the LGIP rate. Then the portion above the threshold will be paying out at 5.2%. Yeah. So, any questions with any of that?
So actually the 15 million, if it's invested at over 5%, that's actually like 14,000 a week then.
I haven't done the weekly calculation. I'll
Well-
do your math there, but
Well, no, because I did it twice. I was just,
Yeah.
we were talking
it's a
about
nice
how much we were losing because we didn't get the money for a while. So,
Well,
I know
we,
that was discussed last week.
Yeah.
we delayed getting the agreement back to them. So part of the delay is on
Well,
us. So.
And I could certainly provide the financial support behind that if that's a path that
Yeah.
is decided upon.
it's good.
Yeah, because I know that was it was a significant delay in receipt of those funds. So, thanks very much.
Thank you, Bill. Our Treasurer Kuhn.
Mhm.
Yes, I heard you were out and about this weekend. Thank you, Robert.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Robert Tintel, Chief Financial Officer. One point of clarification also on the invested funds from the state of Oregon. They will receive the pooled interest rate at probably as of January, it's like 3.49 or 3.32 because all funds are pooled together. So it'll earn that rate. But as we invest higher in 5%, then it'll bring up the pool because it's all averaged out. So
Well, it's good to understand. Yeah. So the pool rate of the county's corpus is the number. It's not just that we see it at LGIP.
Correct. Yep. So we are here today to talk about January financial report, January 2024, and you should have that in your packet in front of you on page 41. That's where we'll start. So revenues year to date in the general fund is 40.5 million, or 91% of the budget. By comparison, last year the revenue was 38.7 million, or 88.4% of budget. So an increase there. Expenditures year to date are 25.8 million, or 55.7% of budget. And compared to last year, about the same at 25.2 million for expenditures, or 55.7 exactly percent of budget at that time as well. And beginning fund balance is 14 million, or 101% of the budgeted 13.8 for fund balance. And you could see the dashboard there. It looks familiar to other years or other months reporting and what we'd expect. So nothing major to report at that, but we will go into general fund in a little more detail in a bit. So the next page 42 is your position control summary for the month. Total FTE did increase 2.0 FTE in health services and 1.0 FTE in the IT internal service fund. That was for the security administrator position. Year to date, from July through June, the number at the bottom right corner, percent is still 10.74. Interesting, at this time last year, it was 10.79, which in the earlier months there were some higher 12% numbers, but we've been hovering right around that 10% mark as a whole this year. And it's about same as this point last year. So at least, I guess we're consistent in that regards. I'm going to move on to page 43 in your packet. This is a brand new report that's highlighted this month.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. And this is a result of the internal audit report. One of the things that they mentioned was we could probably have a little more accountability or transparency, really, within reporting some of these numbers. Obviously, all the funds, and we're listing the major funds. We list all the total revenues, total expenditures, but they're really grouped up at a higher level. Now, obviously, managing overtime, managing personnel cost is an administrative function. However, again, for transparency and accountability, we're just listing all the total personnel costs here in the overtime. What the audit report did state is that for those funds that are major funds that are projecting total personnel costs over the current budgeted amount, then we should also list what the overtime, how are they reporting on overtime at the same time. And for ease of administration, what we decided to do is we'll just list all the major funds, the same funds we report on. We'll list what the budgeted personnel costs are, what the actual to date costs are, and then where they project to be at year end, and then the amount over. And that's kind of what that first middle section, total personnel costs, exemplify for all the major funds we report on. This is where they budget, where they're projecting to be at year end, and if they're over or under. And then the last three columns that you'll notice on the right is the overtime section. So any funds you'll see for these funds where they budgeted their overtime to be, where they're actually at, and then any difference. According to the audit report, really where the focus, where if you just want to, what do you do with this report? It's, if you look at the first section in the total personnel costs, for example, Health Services Fund 254, you'll see they have a red X there. That's just to highlight the line you should focus on. So right now they're projecting that their total personnel costs will be over budget. And then they also do have a red X in their overtime budget, where again, that's just to focus on, they budgeted $200. But actually right now they're at $68,000. So they're over $68,000, a little over $68,000 for their budget. So this report is just to highlight where people are at on their total personnel costs and any overtime. And I do have a statement from Health Services about their total personnel costs. And just as a practice, just so you know, the reason why they're over in their projections right now, it's a point in time because typically departments don't come monthly to update their budget and their projections because our legal level of authority is the combined personnel cost, materials and services, and capital outlay. So as long as they're within that total budget, there's no budget violations. Now, at the management level, when we manage funds, we do break it down and we do watch it here. Health Services will be coming for a budget adjustment to move more of their out of contingency into their personnel costs. The majority of this overage, what they're projecting is for health insurance costs. You might recall last year, we budgeted a lower rate for health insurance costs during the budget process, but then after departments brought their budgets forward, and then the rates ended up being higher because we had some higher claim costs at the end of the year that we needed to account for. So we ended up increasing the rate. And so this is really where the majority of that adjustment is. And as far as in their overtime column, let me see if I get that right. Yeah, overtime is incurred most often in health services in the event of a vacancy or for shift coverage connected to areas of essential work, such as the Crisis Stabilization Center. So of the 69,000 overtime to date, the majority is within the crisis program. And they recognize that they didn't budget as much in overtime that they should have. And they do have a history of their experience being higher than what they budget. So they will be increasing their overtime budget in the upcoming year and looking at that more clearly. Again, on a legal level, it all combines in total personnel and then their total program costs. So there's no budget violations. It's just a management.
Well, and there's some value there, being able to see this over time, when there's open positions or FTE requests. We'd be able to go back and look at this and say, okay, well, just get a feel for what's been going on there and why. So I really appreciate this page. It's a great tool. Thank you.
We're not trying to make it overwhelming for you,
Yeah.
but again, just want to be able to provide you the information. And you're right, that is, Commissioner Bone, what usually happens is if a position's vacant, so there could be savings and we'll see the personnel savings, but they have to backfill it and cover it with overtime costs. So you may see overtime costs go up, but you're still under likely in your total personnel.
And watching those overtime costs get very large might encourage us to do more in terms of recruitment and retention efforts as well.
That's correct. And probably the largest user you'll notice in the sheriff's office, the largest budget is they're the largest department with overtime budget and cost. And again, a lot of it does have to do with because they do have vacancies and then the nature of the work as well. Okay.
Yes, they're at almost 15 and health services actually at 8.17. So
if you do have any comments or on the report or anything you'd like to see differently, let us know as this is a new page in the packet.
actually, according to this projected personnel cost for health is over, 1.1 million over what we have booked.
That's correct. And that's where they'll be coming later in the year instead of coming monthly when they need to adjust it. And they'll adjust the personnel cost and applying their contingency funds and moving it to personnel costs. So the budget aligns with where we expect at year end. And every year, the budget office does come with some cleanup budget entries at the end of the year too, to make sure there are no overages at our legal level of appropriation as well. Okay, page 44 in your packet. Just high level, all departments, total resources. The middle columns there for budget, you'll see our budget was at $387 million for total resources. Where we're at year to date is at 277,000, but by the end of the year, we expect to be at 389 million by the end of the year in all funds combined again here. The next page, 45 in your packet, look at total requirements. The budget is 416 million, and we expect our expenditures to be under at about 403 million. So a little higher in revenues, a little less in expenditures, which is a good trend to see. And ending fund balance on page 47, if you look at total fund balance, the last line there, all funds combined, our total ending fund balance. The budget was 178 million, and we're expecting to be at 205 million by the end. So, and that kind of gets to a follow-up question from last year is like, well, would we expect our fund balance to be up or down? It's also good to compare it to budget, because we budgeted being a little bit lower, but with us being a little bit higher than our budget, then we know we're on track for and doing better than what our budget might have been. Okay, next page, 48, general fund. Again, we're at January is 58.3% of the budget. Our revenues for the general fund in the actual middle columns is at 91%. Again, we expect that with tax revenues coming in. We do expect to be over about 900,000 on our revenues. On our requirements, our expenditures for the general fund, in the middle column there for actuals and the budget, we're at 54% of our actuals. By the end of the year, we do expect to be at 97%, which is about a savings of $672,000. We'll continue to monitor that. So our ending fund balance, we are projecting to be over at this point by $1.8 million, the total fund balance lying at the bottom.
Robert, I have a question. In the sheriff's office and in 911, property taxes current year, it's at 94% for each of those. And yet on this report, we're saying it's at 96%. I mean, which is incredibly high that have been paid. What's the difference there?
Yeah, the difference could be in, it's compared to budget. So the actual, like the dollars are coming in and they're allocated out the same, but it's when comparing to the budget number, it is slightly different percent there. That's where the percents are coming in.
Okay, because like the sheriff, didn't everyone actually get more funding than we had recognized?
Correct. Yep. And we'll see that when we get to the sheriffs. But when they budgeted their original budget, they did still budget a little more than the original estimate. So when the final numbers came in, their increase wasn't as high because they had already accounted for, they had budgeted higher than the initial 4.9%.
Okay.
And I will be flipping over, going past a few pages, but if you have questions on any page, let me know.
I just wondered, juvenile is only at 31% of total resources. I hear that their funding's been cut back. But
Those are, a lot of that's due to the timing of the quarterly payments.
okay.
Because the first payment of the year comes in, the first one's accrued back to the past fiscal year when it comes in July, because it's related.
It's
So
late.
it's a timing of it. That's where it's good to look at the projection for them. And they are projecting to be about on target for the revenues by the end. But again, as they revisit some of their funding, they'll update. That's where they'll make a change in their
Okay.
projections.
Well, you're saying they're going to be almost $500,000 over their fund at the end for their fund balance.
And that's mostly, well, the revenue will be on target, but it's their vacancy savings at this point that looks like that's where really the difference in their increased fund balance is coming from.
The 400,000.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay, page 50 in your packet, TRT Fund 160, 170. It's just interesting, as you know, to watch where our statistics are going and the vacancy, and it's been on the news. I've heard that as well. Right now, we are still projecting about 2% down for TRT revenues for the fiscal year. On the top line there, room taxes, we're guesstimating to be about 310,000 down at this point. If you look at a trend for this fiscal year so far, July we were down 4.9%. November down 10.1%, December 1.1%. But then in January, we jumped back up to down 5.8%. And those are on a per month basis. But year to date, fiscal year to date, and compared to last year, they're both about the same, about 2.4, 2.5%. So we are running under what we budgeted and a decrease from last year. As well. And again, at this point, we're still projecting a 2%. Now we know in February, it doesn't seem like revenue might not come in as well as we had hoped. I mean, just based anecdotally what I'm hearing on the news, but we'll see what the numbers, come in. Again, just a reminder that these numbers are delayed a month as well. So we'll continue to see how the activity goes. The ending fund balance in this fund, the projection is $2 million. And again, that's the $2 million that we've obligated and for the Sun River Service District, and we'll be making the final payment in July. Okay, next on page 53 is the sheriff's office. And yes, Chair Adair, as you mentioned, they're at 94% of the actuals compared to the budget, which is again, the slightly different number on there, but obviously the majority of tax revenue coming in. They are projecting to be a little bit on target with the revenues, about 256,000 over by their end of year projection of total resources. When you look at their requirements or their total requirements or expenditures, actual expenditures to date are about $33 million. Where they're projecting to be at the end of the year is at 62.4 million, which is 3.2 million less than their budget. This number was also updated. They updated their projections from last month by about $200,000. So last month they were expecting 62.6 million where their expenditures would end up, but now they've increased the savings. So they found additional a reduced amount in this month at 62.4. So additional savings there. So by the end, the final line total fund balance, they had budgeted to end the year at 72.3 million. At this point, they're projecting 10.8 million, or about 3.5 additional funds than what they had projected. Next page, 54 in your packet, Health Services Fund 274. This is all funds rolled up for health services. However, it does not include Fund 270, their OHP reserves. So on their rolled up funds here for Fund 274, they are expecting the revenues to come in less at about 886,000. But they are expecting to experiencing the requirements, the expense savings at 3.6 million. So at this point, they're projecting for their combined funds to be about 4 million over from what they had budgeted in the current year. As far as their reserves, in Fund 270, they're currently at 19.8 million in their reserves, but they are projecting by the end of the year, they'll be at 15.6 million in their Fund 270 OHP reserves.
So where's that 4 million going?
In the reserves, it's as how they use the fund. If there's revenues left, their capitation funds from Fund 274, they'll either transfer more to the reserves, or if they need to use it, or if they have planned expenditures out of that fund, that's where they'll see the decrease. A lot of it too can come into how we account for revenues. When they first come in, some of the revenues will go to unearned revenue. And then as they're actually earned, then we transfer it on the accounting to revenue at that point in time.
Robert, can you remind me of the reserve level threshold that results in sending money back to the general fund for health services?
I don't believe there was a specific reserve target level that was mentioned, but if the general fund, if they didn't need the general funds to use it because they had revenue to cover those services, then that's when the general fund funds would come back to the general fund. If they didn't need the general fund because they had revenues for it, then they would return those funds to the general fund. Okay, page 58 in your packet is Community Development Fund 295. You hear a lot about this fund as well. You'll notice their revenues, they are projecting by the end of the year to be down by 1.8 million. They are expecting a savings in their total expenditures from what they budgeted by about almost $1 million as well. Their target, as you'll see for the projection in the projection column at the ending fund balance, is $1 million. And that's where they have it targeted right now and how they've been planning their expenditures. Again, CDD, I have to compliment them. They do a great job of really managing their finances. And when they see their revenues are down, they make adjustments appropriately and accordingly and timely So they're not requiring on the general fund or other resources for based on their needs here. It's challenging, obviously, at times too. They've mentioned fiscal year to date, they've utilized 424,000 of their fund balance and reserve transfers to balance their budget. And they do look at this at the end of each monthly, their deficits monthly at the end of each month, and they reallocate from their reserves as they need it. So as they notice they need more funds, they'll transfer it in. If they don't, then they'll transfer it out. It's kind of similar to Health Services Fund, where if you have the revenue, excess revenue, you can move over, or the road fund, they do the similar things. So they do a great job at CDD really looking at that. And again, they want to maintain their target ending fund balance at $1 million. Okay, next fund is road. They just a reminder on the road funds that we have a few. There's road fund here, and then road fund CIP on page 61 in your packet as well. A reminder, as I flipped, road fund 465 on page 61. A reminder that the capital outlay line under requirements on this row, it's broken out in detail on page 62 in your packet. So you can see the detail of all the projects that are being expended within that one line of capital outlay. And this shows the status of where they're at on their projects. And they do plan on, by the end of the fiscal year, to be fairly close of the 23 million, only off by $180,000. About some projects, cost a little more, some a little less. So, solid waste on page 63, solid waste fund 610. They have updated their revenue projections from last month. So right now they're expecting their total resources to be about 17 million or 1 million over budget. Last month, they were only expecting 16.1 million. So the revised projections is more favorable for them at this time, and their expenditures are still where they're expecting them to be. So at the end, total fund balance, they had budgeted to be at about 1.4 million. They do anticipate now to end the year at 2.8, so about 1.4 higher than what they anticipated.
Solid waste, though, does have significant vacancies of 10 positions. And it says actually 25% unfilled. So are we allocating for that?
Well, and some of those are new positions as well that were part of the budget. I don't know where they're at on the process. They were.
They've been at 12, 11. They've been high for months since last July.
And if I recall correctly, I think the positions are starting here in the next few weeks as Negus transfer station opens in April. So I think, if I'm recalling correctly, I think that's where they're at with hiring those positions.
Yeah. And I can't remember if they ended up budgeting those positions for the full year or they anticipated that they weren't going to be filled until the end of the year, because that would affect.
Right. Maybe that's what they've done, and I can't see that.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to skip quite a few pages here, but again, if you have any questions, just let me know. I'm going to go to page 70, the Risk Management Fund, Fund 670. Page 70. Again, the revenues at this point, we're just projecting to be consistent with how we budgeted. On the expenditures, the requirements side, we are projecting a difference there in the first line under workers' compensation. That was updated to 1.7 million, the end of year projection, which is lower than what was previously projected. So it's a savings about 72,000 over the last month projection. So it's just based on trend lines where we're at this point in the year. So that's why that was revised down. So in total fund balance at the end, the budget at $6.5 million, and we're anticipating to end at 8.1 million or 1.62 million more on fund balance at this point in time. Next, page 71, Health Benefits Fund. The nice thing you'll notice here is both the revenues and resources or expenses were updated from last month. The total revenues, you'll see the actuals in the middle there is 17.4 million through January. We budgeted 30.6 million. However, as mentioned earlier, with the increased insurance rates and revenues coming in, the internal premium charges is what's charged to departments. And then there's the employee copay, which is charged to employees. Both of those have increased and these numbers have been updated. So we are projecting by the end of the year, the revenues will be at 32.1 million, or 1.3 higher than budgeted. Previously, before these rates kicked in January with our projections, they were only at 30.8 million in the projections. So again, going from 30.8 to 32.1 references the increased revenues that we're projecting. Under the expenditures, total budget was 32.6 million, and the new estimate is 31.6. This is about you'll see $1 million savings there. So based on current trends, we are anticipating we'll be down about $1 million on the claims, the health benefits claims that are coming in. Again, that could change next month with health claims. So we keep an eye on that monthly. So we'll see where that is. So where it ends up, total fund balance, originally budgeted at $3.8 million ending fund balance. We are projecting it will be 6.6 million and about 2.8 million more than what we had budgeted. Last month at this time, we were only projecting 4.4. So those increased revenues helped out. And again, that slight decrease in our health claims cost combined helped that trend. So we'll continue to watch it. And then 911 is on the last page. And again, they continue to have some personnel vacancy savings in there, even as they fill in their positions, but on target for revenues. Any other questions on the revenue?
They're down to only missing like 3.91 employees or something. So thank goodness.
Right.
Hopefully we'll be able to start summer fully staffed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you for that new addition on the overtime. I appreciate that. Okay, and now we have item number 5. I see Jen walking up to the front. Thank you so much, Jen.
You, Jim Patterson, Strategic Initiatives Manager. Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm here as a follow-up. During the board retreat, we had an agenda item to review the goals and objectives for the upcoming fiscal year for the county, and we weren't able to complete that agenda item. So I just wanted to come up as a follow-up today to discuss that. We do use the goals, and the departments use the goals and objectives to inform performance and fiscal development. And so we can do a couple things here today. I'm happy to read them all off and walk through them one by one, or I can defer to you if you want to just open it to a discussion, if you want changes or edits to any of the current goals.
Well, any feedback?
When I look at this, I always think of the big areas, the mission statement I'm comfortable with, but then it goes to safe communities, healthy people, resilient county, housing stability and supply, and service delivery. So I'm comfortable with those big areas at this time. A couple bullet points for, maybe wordsmithing or discussion is continue to support pandemic response and community recovery. So if we want to, change that around wording, and at the very bottom, provide collaborative internal support for county operations with a focus on recruitment and retention initiatives. I always think of kind of the last, a couple bullets somewhere being kind of action items for the year. So if that's our same action item for the year or not. So those are some starting thoughts.
Mr. Chang, did you have any feedback?
I feel like these are generally the right goals and objectives, just as they were last year.
Right. And wouldn't it be nice if we could make some more progress? Ooh.
Big thorny issues take a long time to fix.
The one idea for that bullet point of referring to continued support pandemic response and community recovery would maybe even to, go back to the health department and say, what's the terminology or the status of where we're at? As it say, I mean, we want to supply support or, do support. But yeah, as I say, I don't know, it just kind of feels dated the way the words are. But yeah, I mean, asking health department, what sounds like the status of where we're responding to, I mean, even annual, flu, and they talk about RSV and all these different things. So there may be some interesting words to be able to put there.
This bullet, I mean, it could just be rephrased to emphasize preparedness and learning, learning from recent years. In terms of what kind of major, health crises or health concerns might be coming up.
As I say, I just highlighted it. I didn't come up with any proposed words, but we've kind of let it kick around before, asking departments or, management to be able to say, what about some proposed words for this item?
I don't know if this is the appropriate location or not, but when I see that Oregon students are at the bottom of the nation, we have that Safe Schools program, something like we need to continue to support the students in our county. We've got some phenomenal programs here, Friends of the Children, Healthy Schools. And yeah, when I see that they're at the bottom, or there's maybe one state below us, I don't know, there was 30 states in one of the studies that just came out that had us at the very bottom. And I feel like, gosh, we might be county commissioners, but do I care about the future? And our students deserve as much support as we can give them.
I mean, we could also express concerns about inadequate childcare capacity in the region. We could also express concerns about the incredibly large number of students who are homeless in our community as well. I mean, we could put together a whole new package focused on youth. Acknowledging that these aren't things that are necessarily directly within our authority, but which we can play a role.
We can make a difference.
Absolutely.
We clearly can. And, we also want to support having a behavioral health facility here in Deschutes County that can serve this side of the mountain. So that's something else along that line. It's amazing. They were trying to say, well, that's because Oregon kids they have incredibly high absenteeism. And I believe that was one of the reasons why they said our scores were so at the bottom. So it's just, what is it we can do to help those kids find their way, get back into education, going to class?
Shall we work with health services and develop some language around?
Right, because I think we do a lot of really good things for so appreciate, like the Friends program, the fact that they actually have a teacher now that works with kids that can't read. Like, why aren't our schools why aren't we seeing more of that? Because clearly children in Oregon that go to public school are way behind. And it's not good for our state.
And just for clarification, so I heard a couple ideas kicked around, particularly youth focused and several bullet points on there. Are you looking to potentially add a new goal that's youth focused, or to group these a little bit under healthy people and add some objectives under healthy
people, including students, perhaps? I don't know. I just feel like they have to be a really large percentage of who lives here.
So I'll go back to health services to come up with some measurable objectives to fit with some of these youth topics that you brought up, as well as to maybe look at adjusting the bullet point of continue to support pandemic response to maybe update some of that terminology on lessons learned and what we're looking for the future towards. put
That would
effort
be,
so
that
far.
would be great.
Okay.
Here we go.
And that there was also the comment initially by Commissioner DeBonne, I believe on the last one, service delivery, the last bullet point, the provide collaborative internal support for county operations. Is that the one you were,
Mhm.
do you have particular thoughts or guidance on what you're looking for on that?
Well, when I
update?
see, recruitment and retention initiatives, we've definitely put a focus on making sure folks are, advertised, open positions are advertised, a lot of moving parts in the world, the inflation and interest rates on top of, activity levels in some of our different departments. So kind of the same thing. If there's some wording around that, as I say, those are the bullet points that jumped out at me for discussion.
Well, are you suggesting we change the language in this bullet, or are you just saying that
Oh, recruitment and retention
we
initiatives.
still need to focus on recruitment and retention?
And yeah, as I say, we do. But I mean, it was acute. So I'm just thinking, is this the same place that we're at or not? That's all. Just a thought.
I think it's still pretty acute. So, I mean, employment, the number of people employed in Deschutes County is higher than it was during the pandemic. Unemployment rates are extremely low and available workers are very scarce. So I think that hasn't changed. And then, factors like very limited affordable housing, very limited childcare capacity, those just make it worse.
Well, the other thing that makes it worse is I had mentioned it earlier that people that were in their 80s are applying to work at Safeway in Redmond. And I know I saw somebody like that. And yesterday when I was in the market, and oh my gosh, thank goodness that person can work if they really need the funding in order to survive in today's world with inflation. Food prices are astronomical if you're on a fixed income. So, that's part of a change in the dynamics of what's happened. And I'm not sure what we can do, but definitely finding affordable housing is very important, especially for people that are working and want to stay here. So what is it we can do? And that project that we're working on, the housing project, Nick, where we were going to do the underwriting, the $500,000, the sooner we can get that project going, the better, because we were talking about that last year and now we're into this year. And that I really think that's an important project. I mean, it's just a small project, but it's like the that legislature through the state where if you can add 100 acres in Bend and 50 acres in Redmond as somebody, for affordable, housing, to homeless, to expand things. Somebody said, didn't they forget a couple zeros? What is 100 acres in Bend going to do? So, I wish our legislature was, adding more zeros so we can actually accomplish something. But that program, we put our, we put our money where our thoughts were, and I'd love to see that happen. I don't know when it's coming back, but I'm hoping it's sooner rather than later. So yeah, there's a really big need out there.
Just to recap the last bullet point, is there an interest in me reaching out to HR to see if they have any fresher language to use on that? What I thought I heard was that was still an important measure to go after.
Oh, yeah, and I wasn't debating that point. I was just, is there different words we might want to use in that bullet point? That's all the idea is.
I'm happy to reach out to
We
them
can-
and see if they have a recommendation to refresh that language and then bring it back while we bring up the other objective. Is that?
We could always ask. It's always good to have current terminology.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure whether there's new words to use. I think it's, I think it works as written, but open to hearing other ideas.
There you go.
Okay, so I'll work with health services for the healthy people objectives to add a couple bullet points there and to reword the last bullet point. And then I'll just reach out to HR to see if they have any input for that very last bullet point under service delivery. When I have all that, I'll come before you with the updated language and we can go from there.
Healthy people and students, you might have to use a smaller font, but yes.
Or
Get it on one
you
page.
know that I mean, it could just be like adding a bullet that says ensuring our youth have access to mental health services, housing, nutritional assistance, childcare, but things that allow them to be successful. Just kind of have a laundry list.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just, Commissioners, if I can just ask, the only other question is, and maybe it's already captured in here, either under a goal or an objective, but does the commission want to make any statement at all related to the optional deflection program that's maybe coming out of Measure 110? Is there anything there that you want to provide any direction in the goals and policies, just given that that could be a big topic this next year? And it's something, if yes, we don't have to figure that out now. We can come back with something. But I just don't know if I just know Measure 110 has been such a priority for the
Do we do it in,
transition is.
yeah, the first sentence under healthy people is support and advance the health and safety of all Deschutes County residents. Do we do that in bold? Like the top line? I mean,
Yeah, and perhaps that covers it. I just want to make sure.
yeah, I know. It definitely needs to be mentioned because
That
it's been a issue that on all sides.
The second bullet under safe communities covers
Mhm.
covers a lot of what we're discussing as well. It's sort of,
Okay,
it's a pretty good umbrella statement.
great. I just want to make sure that we
Thank you for
Adequately.
mentioning that.
cover that, given the board's priority. Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So other items? Peter,
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the Planning Commission. I'm here under other items.
It's the Board of Commission.
Madam Chair and the Board of County Commission, what did I say?
Planning Commission.
I'm sorry, planning, well, because I have planning commission on the mind. Thank you. Madam Chair, members of the County Commission, I am here to receive direction regarding next steps for the planning commissioner vacancy. It's an at-large position that's available. We, CDD initiated approximately a 4-week recruitment from January 16th to February 9th. I have the 3 county commissioners kind of short list of candidates, and they're all different. No surprise there. And I'm just looking for your direction in terms of how many candidates you want to interview. And just as a reminder, last year, the Board of County Commissioners, not the Planning Commission, the Board of County Commissioners for the at-large position interviewed 3 candidates. And each interview takes about a half an hour. So that was for the at-large position. For the Tumalo area position, the second recruitment in 2023, you initially wanted to interview 5 candidates. One of them dropped out because they moved to Crook County. So you interviewed 4 candidates. And I have the list if you're interested. But, anyway, if you're between 3 to 6 candidates, you're looking at, 3 hours plus. At the conclusion of those interviews, there would be opportunity for discussion. In the past, each county commissioner has been matched up with either myself or the chair or vice chair of the planning commission. So I guess the first question is.
okay, so the first question is, Peter,
Yes.
you have at least 9 people on your list?
I have your various scores. So for example, Chair Adair identified her top 3 candidates. Commissioner DeVone, there was one that separated for you, and then there was a middle group. And then Commissioner Chang, you had 3 candidates who separated. And I have your materials. If you want, I can pass those out to you. So I'm just thinking, so we're talking about maybe 9 people, so maybe we should each give you 2 people.
our
If-
top two,
If you.
and
each-
then we'll interview
right.
all them.
If you each gave two candidates, right, that would be a reasonable afternoon.
Right.
We
could do it.
Yeah, we could do six. It might be lower to the extent that candidates, there's duplicates. So in any event, I want to make the best use of your time. Maybe if you in the next, I know Commissioner DeBonne is going to be out for a good portion of the rest of the week, but if you wanted to, each of you wanted to give me your top two candidates, then I would work with Brenda to schedule an afternoon sometime in March that worked for you and the chair and vice chair of the planning commission. So not asking for you to make that decision on the dais.
And with my groupings, I was looking for overlap is kind of what I was thinking. Well, I wonder who else is going to rank this. So now.
Just offering suggestions. Again, want to be mindful of your time, and it's certainly not trying to put you on the spot.
So I think each one of us should do two, and then that will get you six, and then we can,
Yep, if I would get at least six. To the extent that any one of you happens to have the same candidate, then it would drop it down to five, which just allows, as you'll recall, over the course of an afternoon, there would be a 30-minute break. But I think keeping it no more than six allows for a well-managed afternoon together with planning commission representatives.
sounds like a lovely plan.
Right,
Okay.
great.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you. I appreciate your time.
No, thank you. Thank you. And I hope you heard the compliments from Robert Tyndall today about what an excellent job your division does watching costs. And I'm just hoping you can bring someone else as soon as possible into code, because I know you said you're incredibly short-staffed there.
Yes, thank you for those remarks, Madam Chair. A lot of the credit goes to Sherry Pinner, our manager.
Yes, I know she's,
Who monitors our budget regularly. And we are recruiting for a code enforcement officer as we speak. So yeah, trying to recruit for the positions that are currently vacant. And we are continuing to keep an eye on our budget as we head into, or as we are, next month is the last month of the third quarter. So we're just monitoring our finances to ensure that we're staying fiscally responsible.
okay. So you're actually down 13 right now.
We have
You have 45 employees.
correct. Last week, I gave you the wrong quote. I said 47. We have 45 employees and we are currently recruiting for 5. Today, we just had another resignation that wasn't completely unexpected. So last week, if I answered your question correctly, I would have said we have 45 employees and we're recruiting for 4 positions. This week, we have 45 employees and we're recruiting for 5.
5. Okay.
Thank you for your time.
No, thank you. Thanks, Peter. Thank you for the great job you do. Were we down, remember in the great recession, were we down at 45 at that time, Nick, when you were at planning?
We went down to 28.
We went down to 28. Okay.
Yeah, it was really, really low in the Great Recession.
And the problem is that knowledge that we lose when we lose brilliant people,
It's a big deal.
the
And
institutional knowledge.
Our team develops with the community, and especially in community development with property owners and developers and builders and everybody. Yep. It's a big loss.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Other items?
Just the only other item that I had that I just touched base with you individually this morning is that we will be a sponsor for the Redmond Economic Development Luncheon on April 11th. So we'll proceed with scheduling that. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. We're ready. And that's at the fairgrounds, correct?
I'm sorry.
It's at our fairgrounds?
I think that's correct.
Okay,
Yes.
great. All right. Mr. DeBonne?
Email from Senator Finley this morning talking about House Bill 4002 and Measure 110 reforms, asking for feedback. And, it's just a critical moment for this. It mentions the -24 amendment, and I haven't studied that, so I don't even know if there's, what the push and pull is right now. Also, looks like we just got an email of 10-15 minutes ago offering me, I think this is maybe the senator's office putting
Right.
folks together for a 5:45 Zoom call. And then I know Commissioner Dare, you've been dialing in on that phone call in the morning, Tuesday
Right.
morning. So yeah, this is just the topic of the moment. I'm not prepared to talk about what the -24s are or anything, but
I think that's the latest.
yeah, as I say, I don't know the content of it though,
On Friday morning, I think that's the -24.
which is what we signed on for.
Right.
Okay, so nothing's changed from then.
Yeah, optional. That's-
So then 5:45, are you going to be involved with that?
Yes, it's a Zoom.
Okay. And then, so then the position of Deschutes counties, we have signed on for AOC, or, I guess that's the terminology here, but we have signed on in support of the proposal as it currently was Friday morning. Do we
Right.
know anything else about?
And District Attorney Gunnels said that the way it was worded, it would be okay to sign on.
Yeah. So then, these other questions talk about funding needs, service locations or treatment beds, mental health providers or treatment providers. So this is the senator's office trying to get more information, and we have, most of that information that we know of, but I'm just trying to make sure that we're best information at the moment. We need it right now because that's probably going to be wrapping up in the legislature this week.
Thank you for reminding me. 5:45. Mr. Chang?
I have nothing.
And Congressman Benz did do a meeting about China Hat on Friday morning here, talking about what is it we in Deschutes County can do for those homeowners that surround China Hat that are forever worried about their lives and their property. So he has some proposals which he will be getting some more documentation together from all the neighbors. His message is it's a public safety issue. And since I'm somebody that was working with the Forest Service for like 5 years, I do believe that he's put a lot of thought into it. So I'm hoping that this may be a way forward for the community to actually make Deschutes County safer. So we've got a lot of moving pieces, but we're in a perfect position this year to get something done. Any other? So we have what, executive? I think